Okay, I'm gonna.
The other computer.
I know. The good news is with a Zoom event, I should be back relatively quickly.
Hopefully.
You're in the conference call.
Press record today.
I did. I just did.
Let's check our.
I set an alarm on my phone to remind me.
Should we only get the least of our problems?
Yeah. Come on, Craig.
Let me know where he is.
I just texted.
Is he doing simultaneous meetings again tonight?
No,
Us in Springfield.
Yeah.
no.
We don't like sharing him.
Yeah, it's all right. Computer says 6:59 and my phone says 7.
My phone says 7 too. I was just
7.
It says 7.
All right, let's roll. I call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Anna, would you please read the Open Public Meetings Act?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting the same on the bulletin board of Town Hall and forwarding a copy to the Courier News Star Ledger at least 48 hours prior to the meeting, all in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting was contained on a list of meetings set by resolution dated January 2nd, 2020. This meeting will not substantially go past 10:30.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Here.
Mr. Kudo?
Here.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Here.
Mr. Maderos?
Here.
Mrs. Pogue?
Here.
Mr. Yellen?
Here.
Mayor Devani?
Here. Would you all please stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, great. I am going to let Alvaro take over for conference session. My son is getting a scholarship and that program also starts at 7 o'clock. So I'll leave you with this lovely background and hopefully I'll be back in a few minutes. So all of you.
Patriotic. Okay, so I think the first thing on the agenda tonight is our conference session. Do we have folks from Elite here to present?
Yep.
Or are they muted?
I'm unmuting them. Tom Powers and Dave Cecchio. Just hold on a second, Tom. It takes a second to unmute you. All right, Dave's good. All right, now you guys are good.
I think I'm good.
Okay, these Tom and Dave are from Elite Properties. Elite is the developer for the Mondelli site as well as the old Berkeley Flora site, and we just wanted them to come and give everybody an update on what's going on and show everyone the most recent plans, including for the park, because we know the Mondelli Park is a very an emotional spot for a lot of people in town. So Tom, who has the actual file that you want to show? Because I want to make you a co-host so you can share your
Dave. Dave has it.
Dave, okay. Okay. All right, go ahead. Dave, your sound is not on.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you. You're unmuted though. Nope, still can't hear you.
Not, all right, maybe
There
Tom,
you go.
Tom, why don't you, I'll put the screens up and maybe Tom can talk.
I can hear you, Dave.
You're good now.
Oh, you can hear me, okay.
Now you're good.
All right, okay, well, I'm sorry about that. But thanks again for having us tonight. Like Liza said, my name is Dave Cecchio and my partner Tom Powers is on the conference with us. Our other two partners are my brother, Mike Cecchio, and my father, Amerigo. And just by way of introduction, you know, my father, my brother, and I, we live in Watchung, so just around the corner. Our office is also in Watchung. We're very familiar with Berkeley Heights, and we've always been anxiously excited about being able to build some projects here. We've done some houses, but These projects are larger than anything done in the past in Berkeley Heights, and we're excited about it. Tom grew up in Berkeley Heights and lives in Westfield. And that's who we are. And if you are not familiar with our work, we built 3 of the buildings in downtown Fanwood across from the train station. You may have seen those where the what used to be Mara's Cafe, and it's now Railside Cafe, and Monk's Home Improvement in that complex. So let me bring up the rendering of the building and the plan for the park here and share it with everybody. Screen. Okay, so this is the rendering of the 10 apartment building that will be adjacent to the park, and it also shows a portion of the park, including a gazebo that we intend to build there. And the building will have covered parking with 5 units on each floor above the covered parking. The park layout, I'll show you so we can orient you to where the building is. You can see the park adjacent to the long side, the broad side of the building, with a gazebo, walking path, and significant amount of plantings. We hope it'll be a lush park, and as per Mr. Mandeli's will, we want it to be a quiet place for a quiet, almost passive park. That was, I think, that's what we believe, and what his executor believed were his intentions with the dedication. Tom, do you have anything you'd like to add about the park?
Yeah, if you want to put the park back up, we can kind of just take you through the park a little bit.
Yeah.
It has a stone wall along the front of it, which will serve as a backdrop for. We have roses on either side, and then we have seasonal colors, which is which would be flowers that would be planted in the spring, and also in the summer and in the fall as well. It's really laid out to be a colorful place because we have flowers that'll get planted. There are 5 areas along the walkways that would be planted with annual flowers, with each season. And there is paver entry, it's all paver stones. There's an entry area on either side, and there's a place to park bicycles on the right one. And a lot of the other there are 2 arches of hydrangeas, and there's more grasses and boxwoods in the back, which would be like a kind of a frame for the flowers. And then there's flowering dogwoods at the rear. And that's basically, we also in front of our building have a flowering dogwood, and that would also have the matching seasonal colored flowers. And along the train, there is a 6-foot metal fence, black metal fence, and then there are trees, Norway spruces, Douglas firs, and eastern white pines that span that side of the property and block the railroad tracks. And in the center is the gazebo. So it's meant to be a place to hang out and walk and just, enjoy, the beautiful scenery.
And and I think we assume that everyone's familiar with the site. This is located across catty corner almost from Town Hall property, and the New Jersey Transit right-of-way runs along the top of the page if we're looking at it with the orientation from the site plan, and this is Plainfield Ave in front of the park, and again that's the view from the rendering is from across Plainfield Ave, really, from the corner of the municipal property.
Yeah, if you were coming down Park and looking across. So it's right across from Veterans Memorial Park.
Can I ask a question? The gazebo, gazebo over here, is that what's considered, there's gonna be the little park? You know, that Vito left where the gazebo is that part of the condos, part of the whole plan?
No, that's the park.
That is the park.
Yes.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So technically, then this plan doesn't show it because we felt that this illustrated landscaping plan was a little easier to follow. But there will be a subdivision line just on the other side, in between the building and the parkland, and the park will be dedicated to the Township of Berkeley Heights.
The illustration shows that the gazebo doesn't seem to have a step or steps leading into the main portion underneath the roof of that. Is that just the artistic design, or will there actually, i.e., is it going to be a traditional gazebo where there's steps into the center?
You know, right. I don't see steps in this rendering, as you point out. I don't know if, you know, that's something that I think we intended to flesh out in front of the planning board. And if it's the planning board's intent to have that be ADA accessible, then we wouldn't have steps. If it's not, then, and I'm not sure if park regulations would require ADA accessibility into that gazebo. So that would probably be a factor in whether or not we have steps or if it's built just at grade.
Or a ramp or things like that.
Or a ramp, right. That's correct.
Yeah, it's open for
I should
discussion,
note,
certainly.
a note also that we did file our application with the planning board for this project today. So that was just dropped off at town hall. It hasn't been processed yet. We don't have a date with the planning board, but the application has been submitted as of today.
Do we have an approximate square footage of the little park where the gazebo is?
I don't have that handy.
It's rough, it's around, I would say, the lot is 28,750 square feet, the entire lot. The building footprint is 7,500 square feet. So
this is Keenan Hughes. I can jump in on that. The park lot is 10,450 square feet.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Keenan.
Yep.
Off top of your head, do you know the height of the building, the housing portion of it?
I don't have that on the top of my head, but if I don't want to start rummaging through my files to get answers because I'm sharing my screen.
That's quite all right. It can wait.
I sent all this to Mayor and Council May 13th. If you can look.
I'll check that. Thank you.
And we'll also have like the most recent plans up on the redevelopment section of our website too. They may be there already, actually.
And I can also state that the redevelopment plan, well, it's obviously a 3-story building. To the very top of the roof, I think it's roughly 38 or 39 feet. Again, that's really just due to the gabled roof design.
Thank you, Keenan.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful park. And the building will be spectacular. It'll definitely, it's a beautiful, beautiful building.
Good.
Okay. Those are the slides for this one. Do you want to move to the Flora site?
Yes, just a moment. Let me stop my share here and see if I can bring those up. So the Flora site is not as fully developed, and the planning is, we're not quite as far along as we are on the Mandeli site. So let me see what.
As you're looking for that, Dave, Tom,
Yes.
Can you explain like the adjacent, the purchase of the adjacent property, just so everyone understands? Like we've passed this, council has passed this, but can you just while he's looking for that, explain
Sure.
why you did that?
We had an approved project, and we were getting ready to move forward with it, and we started getting the bids. We were in for the building permit, and we started getting the bids for the parking garage and for the steel and for the the structural materials to build the building, and the costs were coming in too high for the number of units that we had. And we were fortunate enough to purchase the site next door on Passaic, and I'm going to let Dave kind of walk you through from there. As far as what we've done since, what we've done is we had too much common area on the first floor. We had about 30% common area on the first floor, and we only had 2 floors, which made, from a cost point of view, it was too costly to build the building for the number of units that we had. So we were able, with purchasing the property on Passaic Avenue, to get more units, and we were also able to go and redesign the building to be more efficient and not have quite as much of the common area, 30% common area.
Right, Tom. Thank you. So this is the overall site plan, and I don't have the old plan that was approved handy, but I think that this is what everyone's interested in, the current iteration that we're working with your professionals on and trying to redesign the project. And what happened was, we had purchased the florist site, and the florist site was really the center lot in the block. But it was at one time owned by one family, and it was carved up and sold off to family members who own the entire block, basically. And one by one, they decided that they wanted to sell. So this was actually quite similar to Vito's site, Mr. Mandeli's. You may recall there was a farm stand here as well. And Mr. DeFranzo, we purchased this lot first and added it to the florist site. And then and Mr. DeFranzo and his wife lived back here on this corner while maintaining this farm stand, and they wanted to sell their home as well. So we were able to, at one time, assemble these lots, but it was creating an awkward geometry for the building, and that's what Tom's referring to. And what we were doing was we were fighting this awkward geometry to create the best building we could, but it wasn't working. And the steel and the concrete, it was being deployed in an inefficient manner. When the corner site here, and this is the latest addition to the assemblage that Tom's mentioning, it's 123 Passaic Ave, and it's a brick house on Passaic if you drive by. So we were able to acquire this lot as well, and it made the geometry of the site it made it more rectilinear. It's much better. It's much easier to design for. But what we had previously, where we couldn't cross this line, obviously this boundary line, we were maintaining setbacks, and we built this large, entirely enclosed parking garage that was meant to service both the retail that we were provided, that we were going to build, and the apartments above. And it wasn't the best situation. So now we can value engineer the building, and we have this opportunity also to reconfigure the circulation, the pedestrian and vehicular circulation. And we've created this retail lot in the rear, in addition to street parking on Springfield Ave. But we think that this is going to be a much better plan for the merchants and patrons of whatever store we're able to attract to this great retail space that we're going to have. So it's been an exercise in just trying to find the best building to fit this land as we were able to acquire additional parcels. And I think we're there. I really do think we've got a great, exciting project. We think it's a really handsome building at the western edge of Berkeley Heights as you're coming from Gillette. And we're equally excited about this project as we are Vito Mandeli's. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any questions about this? Liza, was there anything specifically you wanted me to cover? We're maybe, optimistically, I'd like to say we're 3 months behind on this one from where if we filed today in Mandelli, hopefully we can file for the planning board here in
Dave, I just want to clarify the picture that you have up here now, that's the original plan, right? Or is this
That's the original, but from the front, we've tried to stay fairly true to that look, right? So,
That's the front of the building.
yeah,
So that's Springfield Avenue we're looking at right there?
that's right. That's right. And right, even though we've gone through this value engineering exercise for the rear of the building, we recognize that the planning board and everyone really liked the look of the building that we presented last time. So we have tried as best we can to replicate that and retain that character that was previously approved.
So let me just ask, is that the retail is the three, what look like three buildings that are one all the way to the left, correct?
Yeah.
On the ground floor?
That's correct. That's right. That's
And
right.
then it becomes underneath it, I guess, garage or something, you just don't see it, so the retail stops.
The grade of Springfield Ave changes dramatically as we approach Passaic, and yeah, it'll ramp up.
So the residential is all the 2 floors above?
The residential, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
So I got lost on where the parking is for the retail. Can you go back up to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is that section that you, oh, it's my arrow here. I guess I don't know if you can see it. I guess near where your arrow is, that's for retail parking?
Right.
Yeah.
So that will be open, and you can see, this point here where I'm pointing to, that's where the garage doors will be for the residential parking. So, retailers, residents will turn down River Road, access the rear from Washington Street, which is a paper street now, which will improve as part of the project, and then access the site from the rear. When the street parking on Springfield fills up, or again, if they're merchants or employees of the retailer, they'll be instructed to go this way and use this lot.
So there is only one entrance, like to get to the rear parking?
Rear parking,
Right.
that's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
What is that lot that's to the left there in the upper left corner? Is that a parking?
That's right. What we're proposing here is banked parking. So 30 parking spaces that we don't expect we'd have to use, but by the parking standards, we have to account for them and show them, but we'd rather see that as landscaped, a little lawn area. Maybe we could, plant some trees or some buffering. We'd rather keep that green if we can, and only pave it if it becomes absolutely necessary. If we're fortunate enough with the retail to attract a really popular restaurant, maybe we'd have to pave that one day. But we don't believe we need it. We'd rather keep it green.
Okay, thanks. And if you had to pave it, would you use pavers that allow grass to grow through, or would that be a possibility?
Yeah. We were always exploring different ideas like that. If we ever had to use it, we could do that. We could talk about what's the newer pavement product. It's like a porous pavement where, there's always new technology being considered, and we can always look at that if and when a time comes. But again, we build, own, and manage buildings like this all the time, and we don't, we're optimistic that we won't have to pave that. We'd rather not.
One thought that comes to mind, if you are successful with a restaurant, the Sterling Tavern has a kind of a gravelly type, more rustic looking parking in the back that people could use to access the restaurant as well. So that might be a possibility for you guys to look at.
Yeah, it's like a corral.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, sure.
Dave, can you just sort of go through your timeline with Mondelli, because I know you're ahead on that a little bit. I know you submitted your plans today, but ideally, what's your time frame?
Right. You know, in these strange days we're living in, I'm hopeful that we can get through the planning board process in 60 to 90 days, and then break ground on this project in late summer. That would be
We're ready to go.
Yeah, we're excited, ready to go, and yeah.
So as it relates to the park, and I have been reaching out to transit, and I know that staffing has been drastically reduced because we need that approval, Dave, if you recall. So that's been on my mind. I reached out to them again and I have not gotten any feedback. So I think I need to put it on my plate to ask the governor's office to expedite that, given where we are right now.
And the construction will move forward without that, release.
Yeah, Mayor, and that's absolutely the case. What we're looking for from New Jersey Transit is the permission to plant in this easement. You know, if the plantings and you know, the walkways will be, the phasing of the construction is such that we do the heavy construction first. So the building, the foundation, all of that. We're not, the plantings are almost last usually, so we don't harm them with any heavy construction equipment. So, you know, hopefully, you know, we can talk about ways to manage that condition or contingency, but it doesn't have to hold up the start of construction if we don't want it to. It's just how we manage that condition. And even if we, you know, it's New Jersey Transit, it's Trenton, and it can be time consuming. We can come up with some creative solutions as a temporary buffer if we have to stay outside of that darker gray area. You know.
How long do you think it's going to take to build a building?
About 9 months.
Okay. So summer 2021. That's right.
And just to be clear, all the parking here is underground, right? Or within the building. So
Under the building, yes.
Yeah, you know what we have, and it's cut off here, but we have two kind of visitor spaces off the driveway in front, and we're anticipating that being used for UPS deliveries, FedEx deliveries, so that you don't have these trucks trying to stop on Plainfield, so that they can pull in, have a little turnaround area, a little K-turn, drop off boxes and packages in the main lobby, and then pull out.
Okay.
And there's 20 spots under the building for 10 units.
And this building does contain one affordable housing unit, right?
Two.
Two.
Oh, two. Okay.
There's a 3-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit.
All right, any other questions?
It's good.
It looks nice.
Yes.
Yeah, we're excited. It's going to look awesome, and we're thrilled to do the project. Thank you for your time tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for
All designs are great.
Thank you for zooming in, I should say. Appreciate that.
All right, I can release my share.
Yes.
Good night.
Guys, have a good night.
Thanks,
Good
Tom.
night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, now on to the regular agenda, Township Council reports. Gentiana, I'll start with you.
Hi, I don't have much today. Just saying that I am very proud to live in Berkeley Heights, and I'm super thankful to see the huge participation and turnout in the silent protest to commemorate the peaceful protest to commemorate the Black Lives Lost to Injustice. And I was super, super proud to live in our town and to see the amount of people who participated in this protest and everybody coming together. And other than that, I'm just super excited to see that everything is opening very soon, and we'll be able to, you know, go out and have more gathering and, you know, enjoy our friends and family. And that's about it. So I'll leave it to the rest of you guys.
Very good. Thank you very much. Manny?
Two short things also. The library has just started offering Acorn TV. Acorn TV shows British movies and British TV series. So in case you want to watch British movies and you don't want to pay for it, your membership at the library allows you to watch Acorn TV through your portal. The second thing, I also participated in the march. And as someone said, it's a movement, not a moment. This walk was well attended by over 1,200 people, I think. We all kneeled in silence for the memory of George Floyd for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And I know the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council is working hard to bring inclusion to all people that may feel disenfranchised. I know they will be sponsoring, and they're working on sponsoring listening sessions between citizens and the Berkeley Heights Police Department, and are looking for more open dialogue. The Berkeley Heights Diversity Council is also asking everyone to watch the movie Just Mercy. Jim Kingsley was nice enough to tell me about that movie also, and it's a civil rights learning opportunity. And for some of us who lived through the civil rights era, it's pretty powerful. They're going to be arranging a listening session, so keep an eye on their Facebook page. And I encourage everyone to sign up on their Berkeley Heights Diversity Council, or committee rather, and become members on their Facebook page. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
Good information. Thank you, Manny. Jean?
Okay, I too attended the Black Lives Matter March on Sunday, and I have to say it was absolutely wonderful to see so many people of so many ages coming together, all wearing masks, may I add, united in their support. So a huge thank you to Ria Cordillo, hopefully I'm getting her name right, for her passion and her energy. She's a new young woman in town, and she and her friends turned an idea into a reality, and really, as Angie could speak to, a matter of days, which was truly amazing. I want to give a special thank you to Kendry Facey, Victoria Van Riel, and Jacada Califani. They were 3 young adults that shared their personal stories, and they educated all of us on the issues facing our community that happened right here in Berkeley Heights. I found their words to be truly moving. It gives me hope that, I think things really can change with this generation's energy and determination to make that change. I also want to thank the Diversity Council for assisting these young adults with the march and for their continued commitment to our community to spread the awareness and inclusion. And I fully support them, and please reach out to us in the governing body in any way that we can to help. In terms of downtown beautification, if you've walked down Springfield Avenue this week, hopefully you've noticed that we have 14 beautiful hanging flower baskets now blooming. The DBC is beyond grateful for the families and neighbors that quickly stepped up and contributed to make these flower baskets happen for our downtown. We were fortunate that we had more donors step up than we had baskets. So we already have some donors lined up for the fall winter greens to be sponsored. And if anybody's interested in helping to sponsor those for the winter season, please contact me at the DBC at berkeleyheightsdwc.com. I also want to give a shout out to Halls, because they are donating all of the labor and to assemble and hang these baskets. And I want to thank our DPW that have volunteered to continue to water them through the summer. For a complete list of all the donors, I'm not going to read them out. You can look into Tap Into. There was a press release put out yesterday, and it will be on the Township website. And finally, I just really want to thank all the residents of Berkeley Heights for stepping up and paying their taxes this quarter. We as a governing body knew that these are challenging times for many, and we really appreciate that everybody in this community did their part to help out our town during this pandemic. And that's all I got.
Great. Thank you so much. Alvaro?
Thank you, Angie, and I echo everything that Jean just said about the March for Black Lives, as well as the taxes. You say it so well, Jean, so I'm not going to try to repeat it, but I do want to congratulate the Diversity Council. I think they did a tremendous job, and I loved hearing them speak. And I really, really was very, very impressed with the young people who spoke incredibly eloquently. Just stunning. It was really moving. I want to also congratulate Angie, who I know put a lot of effort into this on a short notice and really was able to pull it off. And thank the Chief DePasquale and Berkeley Heights Police Department. As we were marching back, on the way back, there was a line of cars on Snyder as far as the eye could see almost. And I kind of felt sorry for them having to hold all that traffic up, but they did a great job. Another event that happened over the weekend, the Environmental Commission distributed 384 tree seedlings as part of a reforestation program sponsored by the state. Berkeley Heights was actually given 1,000 trees, and so we were happy to, about almost 200 residents pre-registered. A number of folks drove up that haven't registered. The remaining number of trees that are available, or seedlings, I should say, are available from Halls. Halls is for free, is generously offered to make those available to any resident that's that's interested in pursuing. I think the only thing you need to provide is your name, address, and email address as well. I do want to thank the communications committee, especially Pam Yoss, who was really, I mean, very incredibly responsive in helping us generate awareness. You could see the registration surges as the day grew near. I also want to thank Liza for her help, and also thank Angus Chen, who basically took this thing and ran with it, organization, the whole bit, soup to nuts, and made it a real success. Finally, I just want to recognize Liza and Angie for their hard work in opening up the, getting us ready, I should say, for the June 15th opening of the outdoor eating, outdoor restaurants. I think just seeing the emails that Liza shared with the council, the 9 documents that they made available to all of the restaurants, that have got everything that they possibly could use to help them open up. They also walked around town and met with all of them, handing them the ordinance. So it's a great initiative, effort, and great job done. So thank you so much. And that's all I had.
Great, thank you, Alvaro. Susan?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Mayor. The march was a powerful experience. It's not my first march. I'm probably 25 marches in through Washington and other states. I never thought I'd see it happen here in Berkeley Heights. Everyone was respectfully wearing their masks and actively listening to the speakers. And as Manny said, it has to be a movement, not a moment. My sign actually said that I carry white privilege, and if anyone wants to talk to me about what white privilege is and how you can use it for good, feel free to email me. With regard to my committees, the Grants Committee. A grant was submitted for the rehabilitation of the Littell Lord Farmhouse. The total project is $464,232 just for the foundation, the archaeology, and the planning documents. We applied for $232,115. We have matching funds from our previous Preserve Union County grant and the trust fund dollars, except for we have a $14,000 shortfall, which will be raised through the fundraising efforts of the Historic Preservation Society. We have 2 years to raise that money, so I'm not worried about that. If every resident in Berkeley Heights gives $1, we're there. The grant committee met on June 4th to discuss the 3 grants submitted in the last few weeks and to assign new tasks. In addition to the grant for Littell Lord, the AARP grant was submitted for $30,000. And we should know soon if we're awarded the money for the safety lighting in the crosswalks by the new municipal building, which is a livability for our seniors. A grant for firefighter safety was also submitted in the amount of $29,000, and the grants committee is meeting again via Zoom on July 2nd. Planning board, an application was heard on application 3-20, and a property owner of 462 Springfield Avenue. For those of you close your eyes, look at Delicious Heights, not Delicious Heights, DeMayo's. Look to the left, it's a brown building. Underneath, they're proposing a retail coffee roastery on the ground floor, and it's a 900 square foot space, which will be used to sell fresh roasted coffee, artisan coffee by the cup and bag, as well as coffee related items, and it passed 7-1. The next planning board meeting is on June 17th, where the clock tower property will be discussed, and it's via Zoom at 7:30. Disc golf, I reached out to Ed Galatelli as thank you, Jean, for recommending me to reach out to him. He was really pleased with all my information, and the Rec Commission loves the idea, and they actually have an active disc golf competitor on the Rec Commission. They talked about a few potential sites, and they're still working on it. They had told me that nothing's in stone yet, but they're talking about Fields at Passaic, the outskirts of Snyder Park, and the woods by Nokia. They're very early in the process because there's been a lot going on that they have to deal with, again, with COVID-19. So they're thinking about getting a whole sponsor, which sounds a little odd, but each company could sponsor a different hole throughout the course. He ended with the quote, thanks again for the suggestion. I can see it happening in the future. For all you disc golf fans, that's a good thing. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Susan, quick question. Has the Gloriously Gluten-Free, I think is the name of it, application, the corner of?
Not yet.
Not yet? Hasn't come forward yet? Okay, thank you.
No.
Thank you for your report. Stephen?
One other thought on that disc golf, like if we get the cost of that, that's a great gift to dedicate to a graduate or a first responder, or it doesn't just have to be a corporation. It could be a way to give back and memorialize to somebody special in town. So the sooner we can maybe figure out pricing, we might be able to sell the whole.
To that. And I will tell you, it's a very, very cheap way to put in an activity in our town. So Ed is really excited about it.
Walking.
Right. They just have some other things they have to get through first because of COVID. Like they're dealing with some other things that were kind of on the back burner. And now they're addressing that, and then we'll get to it. But not we, they'll get to it. So thank you for the recommendation, Jean.
All right, very good. Good report. Stephen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to begin by noting that last week our community lost a resident who had for many decades been an active community volunteer and more recently an active member with the Berkeley Heights Senior Citizens Club in Mike Luciano. I grew up down the street from Mike and knew him and Joan, of course, all my life. And I know how much he cared so much about our community and how many hours he devoted as a volunteer to our town. And I know he'll be greatly missed. On a happier note, the Veterans Memorial Committee has seen the planting of dogwood trees located at the Veterans Memorial site, of course, across from Town Hall. I'm looking forward to seeing those bloom and to adding to the incredible beauty that we already have at that site. I join with all my colleagues in commending Rhea and all the other wonderful residents, particularly our students, of Generation Z and the younger millennials, as opposed to older millennials like me, who made that incredible march a success. We would hope to be in a society where one day we don't need people to march for this cause because our society will have overcome the kinds of injustices, the kinds of needs for change that have already been addressed. And I am confident that things like the mayor's new committee that we'll be voting on tonight to establish will help provide the kind of meaningful progress that in our community that we could look to achieve as well. So I want to commend the mayor for her initiative in getting that off the ground. There's a lot to be done. We've got a long way to go as a society, but that march, as someone who grew up in this town, that march gave me hope that in communities like ours all over this country, that we may well have turned a corner because of the horrific events to really establish a society where the idea of, liberty and justice for all is not limited to some people, but it really is for everybody. So that concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
On to administration reports. My report, of course, there were many new exciting directives issued by the governor today. I feel like they're letting us out of the gate. I don't know. If you haven't heard, we are no longer under a stay-at-home rule. And of course, we've been working, the council, Liza and myself, to make sure that our restaurant community hits the ground running when we can all dine outside. I think all of us probably already have our reservations in place. We're also working with, though, non-essential retail is able to open. And if you don't already have an appointment at your hairdresser, making sure that our salons, nail salons, and barbers are opening as well. Guidance is coming from the state, I think, tomorrow. So we're excited about that as well. Of course, I want to take a moment to laud new residents, Manny Andre and Rhea Cordillo, for organizing the march on Sunday. It was an extremely great collaboration with our diversity council, these two new residents, the youth in our community, and our police department, who worked for 48 hours straight to make sure that we were all safe, and certainly we were, and they adjusted on the fly, and it was probably even better with that adjustment. But keeping with the momentum, as we are establishing this advisory board or task force on racial healing, inclusion, and diversity, I think that it's important that dialogue happen with residents of all types and all backgrounds, in addition to our diversity council, the Board of Education, clergy, and making sure that those conversations get connected with us as governing body members, council, and the police chief. I had a great exchange with Mayor Martin Banwood. They just started something similar about 6 months ago at the Joint Committee with Scotch Plains. I got a lot of great information from her. So I'm going to ask the council's patience on tabling the resolution tonight, because with the planning of the logistics of the march, I really need a few more days to gather some of this information and make sure that it's included in this committee. But to those who reached out to me, there's a number of new residents who haven't really been involved yet. Please, please, please stay connected. We will get this done. I promise you, we just need a little bit more time. I also heard today that the high school senior banners have been delivered, so look for those on our roadways. We'll be replacing the veteran banners with the high school senior banners, so that's exciting. And finally, we had a very positive call with Moody's, who is the bond rating company. Very pleased what's going on, that our tax collection rate was actually higher this year in a pandemic than it was at this time last year. Pleased with the Connell development, just in terms of giving us financial stability for the long haul, that these things are still being planned. Things like the coffee shop and the bakery are still interested in locating in our downtown, even though there's a pandemic. And he assured us that that is not going on statewide in New Jersey, and that we are incredibly fortunate. But I think that's a testament to this group and how hard we all work together. So with that, I thank you very much, and I ask for Liza's report.
I also want to just also thank the rescue squad and our emergency services, as well as the DPW, for helping prepare for Sunday's march. Thanks to them, this all went off, without much of a hitch. So it was great. And Rhea, you're amazing. Doubles tennis and pickleball is now allowed on our tennis court. So please adhere to proper COVID and hygiene practices. Bring hand sanitizer. Don't congregate in large groups without 6 feet of distance in between you all. And I believe that we're also going to be turning the lights on also, so you can play at night. So yes, we've gotten 2 applications so far through the Restaurant Review Committee, as the restaurants are anxiously submitting their plans. We're really bending over backwards to make sure they get all the information they can so that they can get approved on first pass, so they don't spend any time going back and forth, trying to make sure that they have everything submitted. So that's going great. Also, we have a new section of our website, berkeleyheights.gov/reopening. That's where we're putting not only information about the restaurant reopening and Department of Health guidelines there, but also other reopening news, especially specific to Berkeley Heights. So again, that's berkeleyheights.gov/reopening. We will have the results of the large West Side, we're now calling it the West Side Drainage Project that we've been talking about up on the hill, Orchard, Mercier up there, in the next couple of weeks. We're working with the YMCA to get their pool finished in terms of approvals and sign-offs that the township needs to participate in, and they're hoping to open after July 4th. The light at Locust and Snyder should be done by the end of the month. The capital ordinance that is up for adoption tonight will provide money to the township to start several road and drainage projects this summer, including Fairfax, as well as Ferndale, Greenbrier, and Hastings, to finish off the Woodruff section of town. Redevelopment updates, I highly recommend everyone check the section of our website. There's the drop-down menu on berkeleyheights.gov named redevelopment. Please check there for updates on all these projects, which all of them are still moving forward. So COVID has not stopped any of them. And I'll just also a reminder, we have Friday night clapouts every Friday at 7 p.m. for those of who actually live within hearing distance of the fire siren, the fire horn that will go off at 7 p.m. Go out, clap your hands, bang your pots, honk your horns, in appreciation for all of our EMS workers. So that's it. Thank you so much.
I want to add to that. I was remiss in mentioning that the governor is also allowing for the opening of community pools. So not only the Y, but also I'm having a moment.
Community and private.
The swim club, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Not only am I getting gray hairs, I'm getting forgetful during this pandemic. So I just want to mention that, and guidance is coming shortly. So hopefully everybody will be very successful in opening up this summer.
Did they talk about camps like playground?
Oh yes, and that's the other thing. Okay, so we got guidance today. It's stringent. It's pretty stringent in terms of what they're expecting. It appears as though there has to be a health officer in attendance daily. I don't know if that means just a check-in or on site. The sanitizing of bathrooms. I mean, some of the protocols. We're going to have to really take a hard look.
We don't know.
It might be tough. It might be tough. So.
Has the Y given a update in terms of the construction progress on the pool?
They're hoping to be open, like Liza said, they're hoping to be open July 4th weekend.
Great.
Yep. So.
I have a question about the drainage study, Liza. You said it's going to be expected to complete when?
In the next few weeks.
Okay, and the outcome of that? I'm sorry. Is there a report that what do we expect from that? Is that just we put together then a plan for the work that needs to be done? Is that what's?
Exactly. Like, yeah, this report will find out if there's things that actually need to be fixed underground that we cannot see, you know, the angle of pipes underneath there, if the angles, you know, need to better facilitate water flow and that type of thing. Yes. It'll like provide the foundation for what to do next.
And the budget, correct?
Sorry?
And budgeting, like for example, this is the remedy and here's the price tag. This is the remedy, here's the price tag.
Right. Right.
I assume we'll have a conference session or when this comes out to talk about it, the findings.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We'll make sure we do that.
Agree. Yep.
Yep.
Good.
Okay,
Okay.
who's the reader tonight?
Reader tonight, Gentiana owes me. Let's see.
I'll take 2 turns next time. Yeah. I didn't have a printer around here, so.
I move that all Township Council reports be accepted and approved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move that the minutes of the regular meetings of the Township Council held on April 28th, 2020 and May 4th, 2020 be as distributed, be accepted and approved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
All right, we've got our first ordinance, public hearing and final adoption. Liza, can you, I guess the first one is just the calendar year 2020 ordinance. You need to read that? I'm sorry, not Liza.
Anna.
Anna.
Like,
Yes.
good job.
Yes, I'll read it. Calendar year 2020 ordinance to establish a cap bank.
I move that the ordinance as read by the clerk, I move to open the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
The hearing on the ordinance to establish a cap bank is now open.
Angie, can
Yes.
you please read the instructions for comment period?
Okay. Hold on.
If you don't have them, I have them handy.
I think this is the one. Okay. The Zoom public comment period will operate as follows. There will be one public comment session before the agenda items. There will be no public comment at the end of the meeting. All participants, with the exception of council, will be on audio only and will be muted until the public comment period. People can request to address that council at any time by putting your name and address in the chat box to the right of your screen. The host, Liza, will see these requests and call on you during the public comment period. Each resident will get 1 3-minute period to make the remarks. Council will respond only when the resident is completely finished and back on mute. This is to ensure each person who wants to ask a question gets a chance to, and will avoid people talking over each other so everyone is clearly heard. When the host, Liza, calls on people to ask their question, they will do it directly via audio only, not video. Please indicate when your questions are complete. Okay, so
Right.
this is the hearing on the ordinance, though.
Yes, so just on the cap bank, because I'm getting some questions about it right now.
Okay, I see. Okay. So the hearing on the cap bank is now open.
Okay, so now we have Tom Majeski, 40 Ralph Place. Hold on. Okay, Tom, all right, you're unmuted.
Hi, I would just again like to speak against passing this. I believe that that it's very clear that this is only supposed to use if the township is not able to pay for necessary items. That's impossible. I believe the words are impossible and necessary. I don't believe that we're in a situation where it would be impossible or necessary. I don't believe that we should be loosening our belt for future spending, and I would suggest that you vote no on this.
Anything more, Tom?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Anyone else have any questions on the cap bank? I don't see anybody else in the chat. Going once.
In that case, I move to close the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yeah,
Kingsley?
it's primarily currency there, so.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move that the ordinance as read by the clerk and hearing held hereon be adopted and final passage, and that the clerk be directed to advertise same in the Courier News.
Second?
Any discussion? You're the second guy tonight. Roll call.
Well, I was
Mrs. Brahimai?
She's muted.
She's muted.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance number 2.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting for. Adam, would you please read the
Yes.
ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Berkeley Heights, County of Union, State of New Jersey, permitting restaurants to seek approval to operate temporary outdoor dining areas.
I move to open the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
The hearing is now open on the restaurant, outdoor dining restaurant ordinance.
Also, I just want to thank Manny for working on this. We were able to get this up and going, pretty quickly. So thank you for working on it. He sent some ordinances from some other towns that we could look at, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. Also, Craig, can you discuss real quick just how this is going into effect faster than usual, or do you want to wait?
I can address that. That's actually the subject of a resolution later in the meeting. But this ordinance is basically an ordinance that provides relief from some of the township's formal procedures in order to establish outdoor dining areas where they weren't previously permitted to do so, or were not previously approved. As an ordinance, normally it would go into effect in 20 days after adoption, which is ostensibly tonight. There is a resolution which utilizes a provision of the Faulkner Act in conjunction with the Governor's Executive Order number 150, which allows for outdoor dining to begin on June 15th, which is obviously quite a few days prior to when this ordinance would normally take effect. So by virtue of the Governor's Executive Order and the exception referenced in the resolution under the Faulkner Act, the Township Council, if it adopts the ordinance and then adopts the resolution, will effectively shorten that effective date by about 10 days, and we'll have that in effect on the 15th so that everyone's ready to go.
So can you clarify, Craig, who's going to be on this, who's going to be on this committee for this ordinance for the public again? Is it, did we remove the beautification committee, the chair of the beautification committee, downtown beautification committee from this? Because we're trying to make it like less bureaucratic, and the whole idea of putting that out there was actually to speed up the process, to open up the restaurants and not to create more issues.
Yes, so the ordinance as it was modified on the record in the at first reading, and Councilwoman Kingsley, you might feel free to chime in on which ones we're talking about here that are now included. We have the zoning officer, technical assistant to the construction official.
Yep.
The township administrator, the Board of Health secretary.
It's a member of the police department.
Anybody
Fire.
from the planning board, just for the public lives, not for me, just so you know. Like,
Correct.
to make it clear.
The police chief and the OAM coordinator, who happens to be the fire chief. So we don't have. So we've eliminated the fire chief from the order. We've eliminated the chair of the DVC.
Chair of the DVC. Okay.
But it's a designee. It's a DVC chair or their designee, correct?
Yeah.
And we got rid of the engineer.
Yes.
the township engineer, and the fire chief, because in this case, OEM and fire is one.
So we're at an odd number, you know.
Right. All right, any other members of the public? Nothing.
Okay. Seeing none, I move to close the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move that the ordinance as read by the clerk and hearing held hereon be adopted on final passage and that the clerk be directed to advertise same in the Courier News.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Anna, would you please read the third?
Yes. Bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Township of Berkeley Heights in the County of Union, New Jersey, appropriating $2,655,045, therefore, and authorizing that issuance of $2,180,293 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof.
I move that to open the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
The hearing on the bond ordinance is now open.
Anything, Liza?
She zoned out on us.
I don't have anything. Anybody have anything on the bond ordinance?
Give it a beat.
No.
Going once?
I do have a question though. If somebody had a question about the last ordinance, just logistically couldn't get it to you in time, the restaurant or the outdoor seating.
I'll allow it.
Okay.
Right, can I do that? Is it procedurally, Craig?
I mean, that public hearing is over and the ordinance has been adopted. So if you want to
All
give
right,
that
Anna's shaking
person
her head.
opportunity to speak at the,
Okay.
So
yeah,
I
you
suggest
give that
that
person
person,
opportunity.
yeah, use the citizens hearing to ask that question. Write it down so you don't forget. Sorry about that.
So I move to close the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move that the ordinance as read by the clerk and hearing held hereon be adopted on final passage and that the clerk be directed to advertise same in the Courier.
Second?
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Anna, would you please read the fourth ordinance?
An ordinance of the Township of Berkeley Heights, County of Union, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Title V of the Code of the Township of Berkeley Heights, Business Licenses and Regulations to remove Chapter 5.08, Charitable Solicitations, and amend and supplement Chapter 5.20, Peddlers and Solicitors.
Second.
Any discussion?
I gotta
Yes.
say,
Yeah, Alva's got to,
Oh, sorry. I was so anxious. I'm sorry.
I move to open the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk. Now,
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
yes,
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
yes.
I think that
The
Craig was going
hearing,
to offer some clarification about this.
I'm sorry?
I think Craig was going to offer some clarification on
Yeah,
the changes that have been made.
Okay, Craig, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The council members have received a slightly modified version of the ordinance that makes changes relative to the timing of the door-to-door activities that are permitted. Those changes primarily affect, I just want to get to that particular section, section 5.20.080 F. And the new section now reads, that section now reads, and basically this makes the timing the same every day of the week, beginning at 9 a.m. and ending at 9 p.m., Monday through Sunday. Because of that change, there are two other small changes that also are in the modified draft, and that is to eliminate the first whereas clause, which deals with the bases for some of those changes, but those bases no longer need to be reflected in the whereas clauses. And the other is the definition of sunset has been deleted because the basis for the end time for solicitation is no longer based upon sunset. And those changes are all reflected in the drafts that were sent to you later in the afternoon today. And they are not, although they're important, they don't require us to reintroduce. So this is still on for second reading, but I don't know that the public had the benefit of those changes. I wanted to make sure that they knew what those changes were prior to public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, so the hearing rather on the ordinance, the solicitation or the no-knock ordinance is now open.
Yes, I do have one. Josh Bachner, 29 Cinnamon Tree Lane, and you're off mute.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to clarify because basically my entire comment was about the curfew. So I want to make sure that I am very clear on what has been changed because, you know, then we can skip my comment. So just to confirm what's being changed, the curfew now only prohibits activity between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. And that is the same for every single day of the week?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that confirmation. That means that I can skip everything I had written.
And support it.
Well, right. I mean, yes, I do support this and I recognize the reasoning for why it was made. But I am still really disappointed in the process of this the past couple of meetings. I think there have been numerous times in somewhat recent history where our town has relied on a legal analysis that is not available to the public to defend ordinances and resolutions that members of the public, not just myself on other issues, have questioned the legality of. And that is what had happened in this ordinance. There's still some private legal analysis. And so the reason, as I understand it, that the real reason that the ordinance has now been changed is because I went ahead and did a correct legal analysis of what was happening. So I really, really encourage you moving forward to not rely on secretive legal analyses that are not made available to the public. We, rely on our legislative branch to have a real reasoning for why they're putting forward laws. And we as the public, we really should have the right to know what the legal reasoning is for making the laws as they are. So again, thank you for now finally, making this ordinance constitutional. I wish it hadn't taken so much work on my part, but I'm glad that it's finally there. That ends my comment.
Thank you, Josh.
We have, I think it's Richard Matula, 5 Hastings. Richard, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking a question about this ordinance, and I'd like to make a suggestion on it also. With the attorney now making the change, I am now referring to the first whereas clause, which reads, whereas the township recognizes that some residents have a level of discomfort with persons peddling, selling, or soliciting goods, wares, merchandise, or services on private property, and it goes on to the next whereas clause. How many residents does this apply to? So that's the question. Now the suggestion, and I appreciate what the previous speaker did, but it raises a question in my mind, and I'd like to make the following suggestion. The writing of an ordinance, any ordinance, in part or full by a particular law firm, should be such that any litigation flowing from that ordinance should be conducted by a previous law firm. Why? Even if inadvertent, and here the previous speaker spoke eloquently of the time involved for this change to be made. The first law firm not profit from any gross and any errors and or mistakes in writing the ordinance. So the question is, how many residents does this first whereas clause apply to? And I'd like to get feedback as to what you think about my suggestion. I am finished.
Thank you, Richard. I don't know, Craig, you have a comment?
I don't have the a number. I wasn't provided with that level of detail.
Also, just Craig, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but these changes were not made because of an error in the original language.
No.
These changes were made as a result of the public hearing process where we received feedback from the residents and integrated that feedback into an ordinance that's more reflective of the broader population. It was absolutely not because something was deemed unconstitutional or someone made an error in the language. I just want to clarify that because Craig might not say it himself, so I will. We do have another question. Margaret Illis,
Okay, sorry.
102. Oh, did someone want to comment on the rest of what Mr. Matula said before I move on?
No, you
I don't think that was his question.
I think the question was if the ordinance
If another
was
law, or yes, exactly.
constitutional prior to these amendments that were made. Should a law firm somehow,
yes.
a different law firm should be making the changes, which is exactly what had in this particular situation. We didn't draft the original ordinance, but we did help to implement the modifications.
Okay. Margaret Illis?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple of things on this ordinance. First of all, if, as Liza said, these modifications were made due to a prior public hearing, I don't understand why they weren't available for the public to review, whereas the copy of the ordinance that went out with the agenda was the prior version of the ordinance. So that makes it very difficult for the public to really comment on and understand what's going on because we don't actually have it to review in advance. So I respectfully request that on this and other instances that the council and administration do make more of an effort to either update the agenda with the updated documents or make them available to the public prior to the meeting. This is not the first time that things have changed virtually as we're sitting in the meeting. And really that doesn't give the members of the public or honestly the council any opportunity to review the actual documents that are being submitted. So if the council can get it in advance, then why can't the public get it in advance? I encourage the council to vote against this ordinance. I've been researching more about policing practices in the United States and, you know, after the George Foreman murder.
George Floyd?
And one of the things, George Floyd, I'm sorry. One of the things that's been documented is that there's a lot of there are ordinances in municipalities for non-violent crimes or non-violent things that can cause the police to be called on individuals, which can cause bad things to happen as a result. We haven't had that case in Berkeley Heights, but now that we're passing a ordinance, if somebody knocks on the door and the person is on the no-knock list, it's protected speech, but they don't want to knock, they're going to call the police, which might start an uncomfortable or unfortunate event as a result of that. So I don't see really the need for this. If somebody doesn't want to answer the door, don't answer the door. When I don't want to answer the door because somebody knocks on it, I don't answer the door. So I don't understand why we need an ordinance that will open up somebody calling the police for a person knocking on their door. It seems unnecessary. So thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Do you have anybody else?
Yes, yes, yes. Tom Majeski, 40 Ralph Place. Just give it a second. Okay, go ahead.
Liza, I just heard you speak on behalf of the lawyer, and you basically said that it wasn't that it was unconstitutional, but it was just to make it a better flow to represent the township. I disagree with that, and I was just wondering if we could hear that from the lawyer, and specifically which person's public comment made the township change the ordinance.
I'll address that briefly. We believe that the ordinance.
I just want to make sure that's your all of your questions, Tom.
Yeah, that's it. It's just like
Okay.
that Liza made the comment in Craig's behalf that it wasn't because it was unconstitutional, it's to make it more representative for the town. And I just want to know, first of all, whose comment was used to, that was used to make it more representative of the town, and secondly, to hear from Craig that it was not unconstitutional the way it was written.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Craig?
Thank you, Mayor. The ordinance, as previously drafted and introduced, it is our opinion. It remains to be our opinion that it was constitutional, that it was enforceable, and that there were adequate reasons and bases to sustain that under a constitutional analysis. We generally don't share the opinions, the legal opinions that we provide to the public. It's attorney-client privileged information. The analysis here, and there was a lot of back and forth, and that in part, including some additional background information that we were trying to get, was the primary cause for getting this ordinance to the council in the amended form earlier today, which deprived the clerk the ability to get this up to the public, and for that I'll apologize. Sometimes we have a lot of back and forth. We have a lot of analysis that has to be done. And overall, in this particular instance, this ordinance, there was no one particular comment I can't speak to, but there were a number of them. I think the voices were heard, and the issue of the timing, particularly the curfew, the nighttime curfew, is something that we've discussed as in connection with the no-knock components of this ordinance. If those prior complaints and prior concerns that were voiced to the township in years past, if they rise again, on the one hand, those individuals can utilize the no-knock provisions, and that can help address the issue of folks who are coming after dark, who might, in situations where perhaps the homeowner doesn't appreciate that. And on the other hand, and I've had discussions with members of the administration on this, currently, if there are, we haven't had a 9 o'clock curfew on the books before, now we will, and that is if the ordinance is adopted. And this will give the town an opportunity to kind of monitor, to log any complaints that are made. And if the ordinance needs to be tinkered with again, whether that's to have a later curfew or an earlier curfew, or a sunset-based curfew, which again, we believe is constitutional, then that can be done. But in the end, the recommendation was to make these changes as was introduced, not introduced, but as was presented to the council earlier today, and is before the council now.
Thank you, Craig.
Anybody else?
I don't have anybody else specific to this ordinance, no.
Seeing nobody, I move to close the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move that the ordinance as read by the clerk and hearing held hereon be adopted on final passage and the clerk be directed to advertise same in the Courier News.
Second.
Any discussion? Bless you. Roll call.
Yeah, just quickly before we vote, I just want to commend Craig and our as well as Susan and the others who have worked on refining and improving this ordinance to make sure that it reflects the needs that we've all been working on this. And because of those improvements, I will be voting in favor.
Yeah, I have another question on that. I completely agree with what Josh Boschner said. I think we should have more public forums before we actually move to adopt an ordinance so people have more of a chance to comment on it. And in this case, because it's an existing ordinance and because of the time change, because that was unconstitutional, I'm going to be voting yes on that. But other than that, I'm not in favor of this ordinance at all, personally. So that's it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, I move to open the hearing on agenda items and citizens hearing.
Second. Any discussion?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
The citizens hearing is now open.
So this is for everything
Do I have to read it
on
again?
the agenda. No, you don't have to. Just a reminder, everybody gets one comment. Get your questions out in 3 minutes or less, and then the council will respond. It's just easier to. Yes, it's easier to respond. Is anything getting pulled from the agenda?
Table, yes. Table number. I'm sorry. I can't put my eyes on it real quick.
Resolution 6.
Yeah.
We'll have to vote to pull it right later. Craig, correct me if I'm wrong. We have to vote to pull that when we get to that part of the agenda.
No, just
Yes, that's on the agenda right now. So that will, when we get to that item, you can do a vote to table.
Okay, so first in the queue is Tom Majeski, 40 Ralph Place. Take like 2 seconds. Okay, go ahead.
I should get a double session because I kind of got ripped off in my other session. Just a joke. But again, we broke protocol for the Robert's Rules of Order. And there was speaking and discussion by the council during the public hearing. And the citizens' question was missed entirely and went right to a vote. It's difficult enough to follow the Zoom meeting even when things are perfect. But when we break protocol, it's even worse. I don't even feel we had a public hearing on that. I wasn't able to ask my question because the council never stopped talking during that period. Sorry. But can we just please stick to Robert's Rules of Orders when it's citizens hearing, please allow us to speak during that time. That's my first statement. The questions I have now are, does the Little Lord Trust Fund, is that legally limited by the paperwork that it can only be used to maintain that building? The second question is what is the status of the municipal building? It was a big issue a couple of meetings ago, but I haven't heard if we're canceling phase 2 or we're doing the bonding. And I want to also question, has Mass been responding to our legal notices? I know they stopped responding to some of them, and we were stuck at one point. Also, I'd like to ask if there's been any updates or estimates when we will get our check from Toll. We're supposed to get a check for about $10.5 million. I know that we have more than $10.5 million, and I know that check is supposed to be earmarked to directly pay off debt. So every month that we don't get that check, we're actually paying some bond. It doesn't matter that it's the same bond, but some bond we're paying off on $10.5 million. So every month that goes by, we're paying interest and principal on something. And I'm just curious what's going on with this 10.5. Do we have a date or a rough estimate when we're going to get that check of 10.5 million? That's all I got.
And I just, before you go, want to clarify, are you referring to the grant on the Littell Lord property?
No, there's supposed to be a trust fund. So
oh, the trust fund, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, there's a trust fund there. So the question is that trust fund only able to be used for the maintenance of that building? And what's the legal limitations for how the money from that Little Lord trust can be used?
Okay. All right.
You want me to talk about that, Mayor?
Mayor? Well, hold on. I'll try to go in order. So as per Robert's Rules of Order, yes, we need to get better at that and we need to improve. We are aware of that. So thank you for the reminder. Yes, Susan, would you mind just taking the Littell Lord question?
Not at all. So the money in the Littell Lord Trust Fund came from the rental property of the grandmother's house. And yes, that money can be used only to maintain the Littell Lord farmstead. So we're using that money, not all of it, because some of it has to stay in the trust for other maintenance things. I spoke with the CFO and she gave me a very realistic amount that we could use as a matching grant and conservatively keeping other money in the trust fund. So, but that money has to be spent on Littell Lord.
Was that confirmed by through the lawyer, or is that, who confirmed that?
It's a trust fund for that property.
I understand, but who is the legal, it depends on the legal definition of how that, even though it's a trust fund for that property, if it doesn't state it can only be used for that property, then there's not a legal restriction. I'm asking for the legality of the use of that funds. Is it only if you used it, if we had a problem and we had to use it for snow removal one year, would that be breaking the law in some way?
We'll look into that ourselves further, just to confirm, just so we can kind of see what those parameters are, maybe give everyone a little better understanding of what those details are or are not.
Could somebody get back to me this at some point with that when you find out what after your research?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, we'll funnel it to you at some point.
Okay, thank you.
The Berkeley Heights Municipal Complex, we are still in negotiations with Epic, who is the developer. We're hopeful, I'll say, that we can get to a point where we'll be able to finalize the building and potentially do phase 2, but we're just simply not there. And because there are ongoing negotiations, I think that's probably the limit in which I can say. Craig can admonish me if that's true. You said masked legal notices.
Was it Master Epic that stopped replying to the legal notices? I thought it was Mass, or was it was Epic?
Epic, right.
Sorry, yeah, I misspoke then.
Okay, and that's all part of this negotiation that we're trying to finalize and they move forward, but we just don't have an answer at this point. And then Toll, as I understand, the Toll check comes when they receive all of their approvals. Mm-hmm. As recently as, I believe, in the last few weeks, they have applied to the Union County Planning Board. We have checked in on that application to make sure that they understand, the county understands how important that application is and that it's heard in a very timely fashion. But I believe that and the Union County Somerset Soil Conservation Permit are the last few hurdles that need to be had in order to get that check. But Eugenia, do you have anything additional?
They need to get a TWA approval. That's the one that could take several months, especially with the DEP saying now because of COVID, things may take longer. Hopefully not, but
I believe the latest estimate, it's going to be anywhere between January and March.
Yeah, and there was an executive order extending the time in which DEP can issue those permits like TWAs. And I believe it was an additional, don't quote me, but I think it's additional 6 months. It's either 3 months or 6 months, so.
We want to try to get it by the end of the year if we can, if that approval goes through. But that's the big question mark.
Okay, next resident.
Liza's muted herself.
Sorry. Jeff Vernerin, 20 Wardell. Okay, you're unmuted.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to ask some questions. Since the May council meeting, actually 2 meetings ago, where I asked about the municipal complex project, I've been doing some due diligence to make more granular suggestions and follow up to the email that I sent you. I've sent in a couple Oprah requests. I've also been reviewing documents that are available online and actually sat through several videos as well that are available online. Kind of since then, and this is where my question is directed to Mr. Medeiros, Mr. Yellen, and Mrs. Pogue. The three of you published an article in Tap Into on May 21st. And I'm trying to verify some of the information in that context. First, what was the first amount of contingency approved by council? What and when was it reduced by the council? The article references several values, including 754,000 and 700,000. Secondly, I also can't seem to put my fingers on the town council approved budget that had $2 million allocated for contaminated soil. Can you tell me the date of the budget that had the $2 million allocated for contaminated soil and the date it was removed by town council? And that's, those are my 2 questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm unclear as to the first question. There was a $754,000 change order?
No, my question is, when is the first council approved budget that had a contingency in it that was reduced by council? The article references values including 754,000 and 700,000. I'm looking to understand when the Township Council approved that contingency and for what amount it was approved for.
I think that's all they're a public record, right? So that should be available on the agenda. I don't have that off the top of my head. I think we can come get back to you with those dates.
Okay, so those 2 questions we'll get back. We'll get more information and get back. All right, next resident.
Carol Matula, 5 Hastings. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. We can
Okay,
hear.
thank you. I have 4 questions. Mr. Yellen raised some issues about problems in the community that need to be addressed. So I was wondering if either Mr. Yellen or you, Madam Mayor, could give me more specifics about what problems there are in the community regarding some racial issues. For example, are there complaints of excessive force? Are there complaints of racial discrimination by the police force, by township officials in the school? I'd like to know what problems the township is seeking to address. My second question is that at the last, I think it was at the last meeting, we were advised that the municipal budget was going to be flat this year and that there was no tax increase. It's my understanding, and correct me that I'm wrong, but I think bond interest is outside of the budget. And if it is, can you tell me what the total bond interest is and what the cost is per average house is? My third question is that the website has a table listing the estimated average tax impact summary for the municipal building. And it specifically notes that each year it deducts $10 million paid by, I guess, Toll Brothers for the Little Flower property. as we all know, that money hasn't been paid. So my third question is, will you update that table? And if you're not planning to do it, I'm asking that you would do it. And then my last question relates to what my husband asked earlier, and I'm going to couch it in more general terms. If we have a law firm, we have a law firm, obviously, that drafts ordinances, it drafts contracts, it does other legal things for the town. If there are issues and the township gets sued based on something that has been drafted by the town, like a contract or like an ordinance, does that same law firm defend against litigation, or do we hire an outside law firm? And those are all my questions.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Stephen, I think this number one is your question.
Yes, thank you, Carol, for asking that. I think it would be best to refer to the words and the experiences of those who spoke at the protest on Sunday, as well as others who have spoken publicly on various topics, both general and specific, that they feel in terms of the areas for improvement they see in the community. As someone who has not been directly impacted by such examples of or incidents that have taken place, it would not be fair for me to comment on their behalf. So I think part of the work that the township will be looking to do is to enable these citizens to be empowered to have their voices heard, to have their concerns raised in the right format and the right processes through this committee and elsewhere, and through that dialogue to help identify the areas where we can make, substantive improvements down the line. But I'm not going to speak for those residents. They have every right and every agency, as they did on Sunday, to be heard and to be accepted on their own terms.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Eugenia, can you speak to the idea that it was a flat tax increase, but the total bond interest is outside of the cap? You want to can you speak to that? Your second question?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to get myself back up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let me while you're trying to do that. If I can answer, I can't see, but I can answer. There's certain things that are outside of the cap, and the debt service is one of them. The same with all the debt service, anything for capital improvement, and share service or grants are outside of the cap. Is that a question?
And what the tax impact is that, does that then skew the 0% increase?
The tax impact, yes. Right now, there's no tax impact this year in the budget.
Okay, I think
the 0% increase, and that includes also the debt service, the whole budget.
Okay, thank you. I think
that we're raising. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Number 3, the tax impact table. We'll take a look at that. I don't know off the top of my head if that. Well, if it deems being updated, we certainly will update that. So I'll make a note on that. And then finally, law firm drafts the ordinances or contracts and the township is sued. Do they defend us in litigation? I believe the answer to that is yes, unless we have a need to get special outside counsel if there's a conflict. But Craig, please just confirm that my answer is correct.
Mayor, that is correct. And the only other exception to that might be depending on the nature of the suit. We have a joint insurance fund that assigns counsel to represent the township in certain circumstances. Typically, for an ordinance challenge, that our JIF probably would not be providing representation to the township, but potentially so on a contract dispute.
Okay, thank you. All right, next resident, please.
Yes, we have Damian Facey, 178 Riverbend Road. Okay, Damian, you're unmuted.
Hey, everyone. I just wanted to make a statement on this past weekend's event, and it's really good to hear the acknowledgement of, the embracement of our culture, and just an important topic. I did want to point out specifically, though, that I think to me, and on behalf of the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council, what really stood out to me about the event was on such an emotional topic, an important topic, and as an African American community member, it was so good to see the phenomenal teamwork and collaboration that took place across, multiple entities. We acknowledged the police earlier on, the mayor. We were right there in the middle of everything, and to see the way that we all worked together was phenomenal. Rhea Cordillo was mentioned, and her energy inserting it into the community, and Manny as well. The thing I also wanted to really just state was the Governor Livingston alumni who took part. And I think it's an important point to make. Their names, Tara Prabhu, Noah Brogdon, Michaela Sanchez, Kennedy Facey, the way that these young adults came together and outlined the agenda and helped support this event, I think it would be remiss not to mention. From Zoom calls late at night to text strings, pulling in, creating flyers, pulling in the right speakers, using their talents in every way to emphasize some of the things some of the opportunities that they've seen within our community. So I did want to just call attention to their efforts as well, and really reinforce just the teamwork and the collaboration that took place on Sunday. We have the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council, I think it was mentioned earlier, we put out a message, a call out to the community that we'll be conducting listening sessions. We continue to look for ways to make progress towards our goals, but working together in a really positive way. And that's our mission. We're going to keep going. Please reach out to us on Berkeley Heights, bhdiversity@gmail.com, or our Facebook site. But I just wanted to say that it was a very positive experience for a very important and emotionally charged topic. And I just wanted to say congratulations and thank you to all.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you, Damien. And I am so happy you brought up the point of the Yale students and the alumni students, because they really did a phenomenal job. And I think we probably were all a bit remiss in our comments, not acknowledging what a phenomenal job and what an important role they had. So thank you for that.
Josh Faulkner, Cinnamon Tree Lane.
Thank you. So I have comments / questions about the no-knock list, and then also about Resolution 6, which I understand it was pulled, but I have some questions and possible changes for it. So starting with the no-knock list, I'm frankly pretty surprised to hear that it was determined that the existing curfew as it was in the past was found to be constitutional. I'm very confused as to citing changing it in response to public comments, because the only comments about the curfew during public comment section have come from me and the two Toms, and the only things we were saying was that it was unconstitutional. So we really do deserve straight talk on this of why it was really changed. And yes, the legal analysis is under attorney-client privilege, but the client, the town, can decide to waive it, and the town should waive it, so that our town government can be the best it can be. Frankly, if the attorney still thinks the original curfew is constitutional, it's hard to have faith in his judgment on other matters that the residents are not privy to, and you may consider asking for a refund of the legal fees for that original analysis. So my specific questions for the no-knock list ordinance are: 1, what public comment did you use for insight into changing the curfew? And 2, will you waive attorney-client privilege on this and make public all the different versions of the attorney's legal analysis regarding the curfew from the past few months? Now, for Resolution 6, the proposed advisory board, a few different things. first, looking at the membership list, I see it says 1 Republican member and 1 Democratic member from the Township Council. I'm always uncomfortable when the two-party system is written into our town's laws or any laws in the manner like this. I ask that you consider changing the language to possibly something like 2 members of the Township Council from different political affiliations, so that way we aren't writing a two-party system into our laws. I also see that a member of the clergy is specifically listed, which makes me uncomfortable with the separation of church and state. There's a nuance to this. I would be totally fine if you chose a member of the clergy as one of the members of the public at large, but I'm uncomfortable with it being specifically assigned to be a member of the clergy. And then I wanted to ask about, somewhere it says that the advisory board is going to partner with the police department to, quote, enhance and augment the community policing program. I wanted to learn more about what that really means, if that means actual oversight. Without oversight, it's impossible for citizens to know if our police really are truly the best of the best, or if we've just been lucky that there haven't been any incidents. And I'm concerned that there has been lax oversight. One example is a few months ago, the town voted to budget for an automated license plate reader, and then it was later cut because of the pandemic. But there's really huge data privacy and civil liberties concerns about how is the data used, how is the data accessed, how is it retained, because this is surveillance of innocent civilians. And I don't think there was proper oversight from the township on whether to approve that. And I also want to add that I hope that members of the police department would support oversight. One example I'd like to give is that in Mountainside a few years back, there was a huge sexual harassment case where the internal reporting structure within the police department clearly failed to protect the police officers. So I hope that supporting outside oversight will be, unanimously supported. So my question specifically on this, question 3, is the advisory board meant to provide actual oversight of the department? And if not, will you support citizen oversight of the police department and implement it in the coming months? And question 4 is, what part of this advisory board work will be made public, and how will its advice be translated into actual actions and changes? Thank you, and I'm sorry if you missed anything.
Okay, who wants to start with no knock? Curfew, what specific comment led to the curfew change?
I'm not aware of any specific comment. I think basically the recent voices that were heard, regardless of whether that was deemed or sense that the ordinance as introduced was unconstitutional or not. What was floated out there was the notion of a 9 p.m. curfew. That is were the most recent voices heard, as contrasted with some of the complaints that were brought to my attention from prior years, and the general concerns about canvassing and soliciting after dark. So there was no one particular comment that was the impetus. It was sort of a combination.
Okay, thank you. As for resolution 6, Josh, if I miss any part of this, send it to Liza and we'll try to get you answers in writing. 2 members, different political affiliations, fair point. That's some good advice, we can do that. Member of the clergy, I'd have to give that some thought and get some input from my colleagues. One of the things that I was impressed with was the ministerium in Scotch Plains and how it has such a vital role in the Social Justice Matters organization, and working with both mayors from Scotch Plains and Vanwood. So I don't know if the exclusion of clergy is a good or bad thing. I think that it's an overall positive thing, but I will give that some thought. As it relates to community policing, I don't feel that we just have gotten lucky. I feel that we have a police chief and a lieutenant who's worked very hard since 2012 to make sure that the police department is an integral part of what goes on, from the police academy with the kids that is wildly popular to coaching and other things, martial arts for women going off to college. Does it mean that we can do better and that we can enhance that? Absolutely. That's part of what I think the mission of this particular board would be. Oversight and those types of issues that come up, I think that's a real conversation that has to be had. Civilian oversight, nobody, that's not a question that I would even seek to answer at this point. I'm sure the committee will keep minutes. This is a temporary committee at this point. It's a resolution. We have to work towards whether or not there should be a permanent standing ordinance in a committee, and that's something that we can reevaluate at the end of this year and decide to do that. But minutes would be posted, as is with any committee like the recycling task force. And the advice and changes, I'm not sure if I have this note quite right, but I think that is the whole purpose of a group like this. We have a diversity council that does an amazing job, and they have laid the groundwork for so many wonderful programs in this town. But as the mayor, I feel it's incumbent upon me, I think the council feels the same way, to be a part of the conversation, have real conversations, see what we could do to make everyone in our community feel welcome. Next president.
That was the last one. Okay, so next we have Sean Kane, 46 Sycamore. Okay, go ahead, Sean.
Hi there. I just wanted to make a comment, and I had two questions. I just wanted to say the town did an outstanding job with the march on Sunday. It was well attended. It was safe and it was moving. So it was just, I think, a good experience. So first question for council members, did anyone have any recommendations or suggestions that ultimately reduce the budget of the municipal building? My second question is, I was wondering if both sitting board members who are currently running, if they would be willing to commit to not accepting funds from persons or entities doing business with the town or county. That's it, thank you.
Okay. I don't think I can answer any of those, but to say, I appreciate your comments on the march. And if anybody else feels compelled to comment on the other two questions or comments.
I'm not sure we could realistically comment on it because, that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Dow, but executive session would cover discussions that have been had about the municipal complex, including items of that nature. Is that not correct?
It would depend upon what an individual council member was looking to offer. I don't know whether there were if there was something that was discussed during an executive session and was subject to one of the exceptions from disclosure, then it wouldn't necessarily, for purposes of this discussion, that would most likely be attorney-client privilege, then no, it wouldn't be appropriate. But I don't know if a council member may have made other suggestions outside of that context. So that's it's kind of a difficult question to answer.
I would add that the administrator, myself, Gene Kingsley, and Angie meet regularly with with Max, the builder, the architect, also the chief of police. I think there's been a lot of recommendations made during those meetings. Not all of those have been acted upon, but I think that's where a lot of the recommendations have been brought up.
All right. Any other?
When it comes to the campaign finance question, I am a candidate, obviously. And we came out already with a statement that's in tap into with our policy regarding campaign finances for this election cycle. And we will not be seeking or accepting donations from any vendors that do business with the township.
I don't think last time that I ran, I took any donations that is with the township, and I don't want to seek any donations that way either.
Okay.
Okay, Margaret Illis, 102 Twin Falls Road. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening again, and thank you again for the opportunity to address the council. The first thing I would like to say Excuse me. I'd like to thank Stephen Yellen for bringing up the accessibility of the park at the Mandeli Park. It's kind of astounding to me that anybody at this stage in our country's history would submit plans that are not ADA accessible, and for the developer to, or whoever it was that was speaking, to answer the council's question with, well, I don't know if it was designed that way, or if that's a requirement. So I do hope that the planning board ensures that any public spaces are ADA accessible. So thank you to the council for looking into that, and thank you in advance to the planning board for addressing it. And then just quickly on the ordinance that was removed regarding the diversity committee or task force, I'm not sure what it's called. I would like to also state that some facility for civilian oversight, I think, is called for in every police force. I understand that we have a good one, but to make sure that it stays that way, we need to take steps. And lastly, I'm questioning why this is temporary, because I don't see this as a temporary problem. Thank you.
Okay, so good job, Stephen, it sounds like, on number 1. Number 2, it was actually tabled, will be tabled, not removed, Margaret, just to be clear on that. Answered the question on the civilian oversight. And number 3, I think that, frankly, I wanted to get something up and going, and I think it's really important for you know, the entities that are listed in that resolution get going quickly, and the momentum is seized upon. So that's why it's a resolution. I am very hopeful, and I believe that it would have great deal support if we were able to make this a standing committee via ordinance. But this is really just in response to trying to get something done quickly, get those conversations going quickly, and making sure that we're being responsive to everyone. Again, making everyone feel like they're welcome in this community.
We have, okay, Richard Matula, 5 Hastings. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions about the florist site in Mandeli, and there was not an opportunity to ask any questions, so I'm forced to do it now. On the florist site, looking at the plan, why not connect Washington Street to the existing Washington Street? On the map, Washington Street comes in from roughly the west, from River Road to the site. There's a half of a block where no street exists, but Washington picks up, I'm looking at the map, from Passaic Avenue, goes several blocks generally east to Prospect Street, and then it ends after that. There's a half block where Washington Street doesn't exist. Why not connect it? Has that been thought of? So that's one question. On the Mandeli site, I only see 2 garage doors. How many garage doors are there? You've answered the question of how many parking spaces, of 20. Is there an elevator? How many elevators? Where are they? I presume people who are going to be on especially the 3rd floor, are going to come in with shopping, and they're going to need to carry this stuff up. So I presume there's elevators there. And where are the entrances for the people who live there, or for visitors who don't want to use a car and just going to walk out of the building, go back in, either for commuting or otherwise? Also, on the Mandeli problem, I see a potential drainage issue. For if you walk to the train station over Plainfield, there is a concrete big drainage pipe underneath, and the water flows underneath Plainfield to the upper left triangular part of the plan. I think it goes to the New Jersey Transit property, but the water doesn't flow anywhere. It's just in that culvert by the train tracks. If there's a heavy rain, where's the water going to go? As the architects, engineers address this issue of drainage. So I'm raising it to your attention so you can raise it to the people who are planning this property. Second, I'm losing track of numbers, but those are questions on the Mondelli and the Florist. Recently, you posted on the website dated May 2020, notice to bidders, specifications, information to bidders, specifications and proposal for recycling services January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2023. On page SP-3, under the heading 8.0, historical approximate volumes of materials, you have a table, 2 columns, material and 2018. The first line says corrugated, in parentheses 01, and under 2018, there's a number, 294.09. No units. Now you say it's approximate volumes. In the metric system, volumes are in cubic meters. What are the units that go with this? Also, units can have multipliers or submultipliers. Typically, it's in groups of 10 to the 3 or 10 to the minus 3. Are these numbers multiplied by anything, like 10 cubed?
Is that your, I'm sorry, Miss, I don't want to cut but it's been much longer than 3 minutes. Are the questions complete?
No.
Can you submit those to us in writing? The fourth question that you have is quite complicated and it's very difficult to take notes on that.
On this table, 8.0, what's the units?
I don't know which table you're referring to.
Right, so we'd have to look it up.
You'd have to look it up. I read you the title. This has to do an RFP for recycling.
Oh, recycling, okay. That makes more sense.
You don't say it and I copied the title page.
Gotcha.
Okay, I will. Who should I send this to? The mayor?
Or Liza, and she'll get it to us. Either way, or both. Send it to both of us. That's fine as well.
I can put in the chat box my email so you can get it. You can have it.
Okay, thank you.
Is Keenan on?
He's not, doesn't seem to be on. I think it's my error in not allowing the public to ask questions while you were away, Angie, but I apologize for that.
So I think most of these issues or questions you've raised, Richard, we're gonna have to get back to. I do not see Keenan, who may have the best shot at some of the specificity, but it's also going to be, is it posted online, Liza?
The plans?
Yeah.
The
detail?
Everything that we have so far, including architectural plans and design and specs and everything, are online, berkeleyheights.gov, under the redevelopment section, and the plans are all under their individual communities. So those specifically would be under Mondelli. Berkeley Florist would be under Berkeley Florist. However, please bear in mind they do have revised plans that we got to get up for Berkeley Florist, which they just submitted today. So,
but some of these questions are probably more specific than what we have.
Yes.
So we need to get back to you is the long and the short of it. Okay, next president.
Okay. Heidi Cohen, 182 Dogwood. Okay, go
There
ahead.
we go. Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. I wanted to just follow up. I know there was a question earlier about a TAP article that 3 of the council folks put together. It was extremely detailed and really valuable. You need to understand when you put an article like that in TAP, for some residents, that is their only access to a lot of information. People don't always come to these meetings and people don't always listen to these recordings. You cited a lot of data at a very granular level. I had 2 questions, and they're sort of a follow-up on earlier questions, and I have to say, if you took all that time and energy to draft this article, I was a little concerned at how confused you appeared at the question. So I'm going to try to make it more simple. There was a reference in the article to a vote to remove $2 million for contaminated soil. I was curious when that vote took place. You all claimed you were not part of it, but I did want to know who was part of that vote and when it took place. Does anyone know?
I can say that probably it was during my tenure in when was I elected? So it would be 2018. It was. I'm sure it was, because that's when things started to happen. And so yes, I'll own that.
So there was a vote to remove $2 million and you did not and you voted against it.
I have to look back, but I was at most meetings. I'm not going to talk publicly about who I worked with or what was it.
Sure, no problem.
But I probably was in the room. I will own that.
Okay, the second item, and this is my only other question that you referenced, was a slashing of a contingency budget to an amount of $700,000. My question is, what was it slashed from? What was the contingency amount that was then reduced? In fact, one point in the article, there's a reference to 700, and literally a paragraph later, it says it was slashed to 754. It was, I guess, slashed to one of those numbers, but what was the high number that it came off of?
I'm not going to answer that off the top of my head because I can't give you an exact figure right now. I've been working all day, and I don't have that number right now. So.
Okay, us too, working all day. But if you could get back to us, that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
All right, did you conclude your questions?
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Next resident.
I don't see anyone else. Hold on. No, we got through the list. I do not see anyone else.
Okay. Motion to close the hearing.
I move to close the citizens, the hearing on agenda and citizens hearing.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to regular business. I move on resolution number 1, approving bill list dated June 9, 2020 in the amount of $985,096.83.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move on resolution number 2, authorizing an agreement with Boxcar in connection with the use of Connell Corporate Park for drive-in movie screenings. No fee to the township, and tickets will cost $25 to $30 per car.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just out of curiosity, what happened to the boxcar for the food distribution restaurant that was brought up by 2 meetings ago?
Oh, no, that was like months ago. I signed the executive order. I don't know. I don't know what happened with it.
But they went for movies down there. Okay, they didn't choose anything like Mount Carmel. That's county property.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, no, I'm just asking. Thank you.
I know I signed it. That's all I know. So the first movie is July 22nd because I guess there's just such an outpouring for this type of service, so we have to wait a little bit. So just want to mention that. Roll call.
The movie is?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
I move on resolution number 3, authorizing the acquisition of technology and telecommunications systems for the Township of Berkeley Heights through the State of New Jersey Cooperative Purchasing in an amount not to exceed $65,000.
Second.
And discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai,
Yes.
Mr. Kudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
Yes.
Mr. Majeros,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
I move on resolution number 4, amending the 2020 temporary appropriations.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai,
Yes.
Mr. Kudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
Yes.
Mr. Majeros,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
I move on resolution number 5, authorizing the township to enter into a contract for the purchase of natural gas for use at township facilities pursuant to the results of the EMAX LLC auction. I just wanted to say this is a re-auction of the of services that we've been provided by a company that will soon no longer provide it, but was going to stop providing it in at the end of this year. So it's a replacement auction. Did I get that right, Liza?
Did I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank
Go
you.
ahead. Go ahead. Do you have a comment? Okay.
Again, Deanna seconded.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai,
Yes.
Mr. Kudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
Yes.
Majeros,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I need some guidance on what to do with resolution number 6. Are we voting to table this, or have I?
My understanding would be we would have to move to introduce it, or it would be moved, seconded, and then someone have to motion to table it. Correct me, if I'm wrong, Mr. Gatt?
No, there's no, you don't, it's a resolution, so you don't need to introduce it.
Okay.
If there's a, but you would need to move to table it.
Table it. You just have to move to table.
Okay, so I move that we table resolution number 6.
Second.
Any discussion, if I can get it out. Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai,
Yes.
Mr. Kudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
Yes.
Mr. Majeros,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
Move on resolution number 7, consistent with the Governor's Executive Order 150, that due to COVID-19 related emergency circumstances, the temporary outdoor dining ordinance shall take effect on June 15, 2020.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai,
Yes.
Mr. Kudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
Yes.
Mr. Majeros,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
I move on resolution number 8, the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai,
Yes.
Mr. Kudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
Yes.
Mr. Majeros,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
Okay, there is no executive session this evening. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Have a great night.
Everybody have a good
Everyone.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank
you.
Everyone, keep safe.